Shalom, shalom. Hopefully, everybody is well. Shalom. How's everybody doing? We hoping and we praying that everybody is well and will be better. This particular subject, this particular topic, is something that needs to be brought out to the people for reference and for edification purposes. While I do not profess to know everything, I do feel in my heart, and I hope it is acceptable on the highest courts of our Maker, that we know how to present something in a matter of respect and understanding. How do you, brothers and sisters, present things to your family that are not in this way of life of saying he or she is of the house of Israel when these types of days come around and you are among them? That is what this is about. Now, let me first go into a matter of a disclaimer. Israel going into the Holy Land, or before the land was known as the Holy Land, were among the Canaanites. It says, after the doings of the people of Canaan, you shall not do, which means that you already have your own particular culture. The slight contrast with that is this: the families we born into are not Canaanites. So we are born into families that in many cases do not know or acknowledge this way of life of being, saying he or she is an Israelite. So how do you go about it in wisdom in that particular case? You don't do, in no disrespect, what Israel was told to do regarding Canaan. Go in there and break all their idols and blot their name from under heaven for the deeds that they have done. Because the Canaanites already had an understanding of right from wrong, in many cases chose to do wrong. And what happened with Israel, sadly, after that, is Israel began to follow certain ways in doing that which is not right, and they fell. We fell, brothers and sisters. And so now in our redemption process and coming to the knowledge of who we are and what our days are, brothers and sisters, how do we wisely, when among family, speak upon why we don't celebrate certain things in love? That is something that we want to present in this particular case. This video may not be for everybody. And the stance that I have is this: when you are among, quote, the man at the job, you make sure you have a certain tone when you talk to the boss, the supervisor, the district manager, the manager, and things of that kind of nature. I promise you, if you bring that camp mentality to a job, the job is not going to be there. I promise you, if you bring that camp mentality of how to sit there and talk to family, like the way people in camps talk about certain things in that kind of mode, you're going to turn the people off. You have to know how to gather the people. It says the scepter should not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So if we already know good and well understand that we are supposed to win friends and influence people, family and otherwise, to a better way of life, how can we do that while insulting, while disrespecting, while humiliating? Let me give an example. Next week around this time, a lot of our relatives and friends are going to be having trees in their house. Would it not be wiser to have the tree outside the house and per se have the children go and plant the tree not putting gifts under it and things of that kind of nature, not dealing with that kind of matter and so forth. But see, if you come off, and no disrespect intended, offensive, bashing, can't weigh, if you will, that's just pagan. You got to sit there, tear that down. You're going to turn the people off. They're not going to want to hear what you got to say. And what you're doing at that point is you just speaking you. You're not speaking word of the scriptures. In Jeremiah chapter 10, we read, "Hear the word of the Most High, O house of Israel. Learn not the ways of the nations," meaning don't practice the ways of the nations. For the ways of the nations are brutish. For one takes an axe, cuts the tree down, decorated with silver and gold, and fastened with nails and hammers that it move not. So what you've done is you've taken the tree from outside and put it inside, where it is cut off from its roots. That's a wise way. That is, for the lack of a better term, a nice way to sit there and present it, as opposed to sounding bitter or what have you. That's pagan, can't sit there and do that. That's going to turn the people off. You understand? Know how to present things to people in a certain case. I remember being among certain family members, and they were eating things like, this is years ago. Not that my family was on trial before anybody, but just want to state what it is in that particular case, right? I remember saying emphatically, that's a roach on the plate. If you look at the picture of the roach, and then you look at the seafood that you got on there, it looks very similar. That too is a water bug. You don't say that in front of the person's mother and father. You don't say that in front of the person's son and daughter, because people are going to be getting in their feelings, and they're going to think you are in your feelings. You have to know how to seize the time. Now, do that. Strike now. Educate now. Do this now at this particular point. If you look at people into music, there's a rhythm to certain things. Rhythm means going which way, knowing how to flow in a particular matter. Not just, I'm just doing it. I am in spirit related to some of the brothers that you sit there and you see drumming online. I remember one of them, not to mention his name, I won't. He was telling me years ago the difference between hitting, slapping, and clapping the drum. But if you're not a drummer in that particular way, I'm just hitting the drum, it's not going to sit there and make any sense to those who are into drums, who might want to hear what you are playing. So now, taking the matter of rhythm in that particular case, how do you wisely go about something and telling something in family and love? Again, you don't do it like that, say, in front of the elders. Let them who are closer maybe do it, and how to present it, and who is closer to whom in that particular matter. See, Israel, we're not talking to our family and friends and loved ones who understand Israel life. So it's different than when Isaiah or Jeremiah prophesied to people already speaking a language, already born with names or certain things, did not speak English, was not influenced. Ancient Israel chose to walk in certain ways. Our people were born here in certain ways. So there is a difference on how to deal with certain matters, using wisdom and love. Now, to the brothers and sisters who would tell other brothers and sisters in Israel, stay away from your family when you're doing that, you can miss me with that, because that means that you're not going to tell your cousin that maybe you shouldn't be eating that sea roach. How can you be a light to the relatives if you are sitting in darkness? If you are dimming the light, means that you're sitting in darkness. You chose to sit in darkness. How can you possibly be a light, or how can a light possibly be shine when you choose to sit there and have it in darkness? That's not intelligent. And being, not to be in my feelings, born and raised in the understanding of Israel practically since the age of 2, now 44, it become regurgitating. We don't do Xmas. We don't do Valentine's Day. We don't do Mother's Day. We don't do Father's Day. We don't do Thanksgiving. We don't do. Well, what has the house of Israel done? We know we don't celebrate those days. And it's not to be nitpicky. What do we do, brothers and sisters, in that particular? You got some Israelites saying we shouldn't even keep the days in Leviticus 23. But that's neither here nor there in this particular matter. Bringing it back to the subject matter, if we will. No offense intended. How can you sit there and regurgitate the same thing year in and out, decade in and out, with the same people in your family sitting in blindness and darkness, and you're okay with that? How are you okay with that when you're not blowing the trumpet? Doesn't mean they got to be a loud one. It doesn't mean that you got to sit there and ruffle up the pets and everything like that. But talk to the peers of the family like, yo, that's a sea roach, my man. You know that, right? You know that's a sea roach, right? Look at the roach and look at that right there. And then having experienced something like that might look at you like, yo. But if you go to the person who worked on it and cooked it and bought it, they're going to sit there and be in their feelings. Know your audience is what I'm saying. Case in point, not to sound arrogant. If I were to come online and do this speech all in Hebrew, it's not going to reach everyone who it can reach because everybody doesn't speak Hebrew. We know ourselves as Hebrews. We know ourselves as Hebrew Israelites or Israelites who are in the understanding of Hebrew being our language. But if you go about it just using the Hebrew language, how are you going to reach the people speaking English? It's the same premise. How are you going to reach the people who is into the matter of eating things that are not clean? How do you approach that without being insulting, without hurting people's feelings? And if you, no disrespect intended, well, I just say what I got to say. Nobody in the scriptures who came with Kol Amar Yah, thus says Yah, coupled it along with saying, I'm just saying what I got to say. Because then that's not thus saith the Most High. That's you doing you. So in most cases, correct me if I'm wrong, when the word has not come down to us like that from the heavens, and we have Proverbs in our scriptures that said the lips of the wise know what is acceptable. You can't do that secluding yourself. They can't hear you. You can't do that, brothers and sisters, not being an influence. Not to get too personal, there's going to be an event for my little princess. Who's 18. And there's going to be a lot of teenagers there and a lot of young adults there saying in their 20s. If we as Hebrews, as Israel, and we say that females should not wear pants, what can we offer the people who don't understand this way of life about it? I can have your jean skirt made from the pants that you got. Know how to present that in that particular case. A wise man once said to me, and I'm not going to mention who name out of respect, but this. If you are sitting amongst, say, Bloods and Crips, and you go and you sit there and state, you're stupid, you're sitting up there hurting each other over a color, you know what might just happen. Knowing the mindset of the brothers and sisters that are Bloods and Crips. How do you approach? I know this is an extreme example, but how do you approach that kind of matter? Blue and red are beautiful colors. No one's saying, quote, drop your flag, quote unquote. But you don't have to sit there and be violent against another brother or sister. Wear your colors that you like. Represent for what you understand to be a unified matter, but transform the gangster spirit to a soldier warrior spirit. See how easy that was to do? But if you go, and I promise you, no disrespect intended, with the way camp mentality goes, no disrespect intended to the house of Israel, it will be, You standing in the hood or not, or in Manhattan or not, or in the busy shopping area or not, you drug dealers are stupid. Some of them brothers got shot while teaching, standing there trying to disrespect people. In New York, while some of the Israelite brothers that you might see teaching on the street have been approached by people, quote, from the hood, like, yo, you said what to my mother? So my point, brothers and sisters, is how do you approach things? So use your wisdom in a particular matter. When Saul was being a hothead, Samuel had to know, how do I approach Saul in this particular matter? I got to approach the man, but how do I do it? When David lost his cool in the matter what happened with Bathsheba and Uriah, how do I approach David is what Nathan the prophet had to think about. So in our book, when we dealing with even kings of Israel, be it Saul one, David another, the prophets who were speaking the holy word had to know how to go about it in wisdom, because you know what would have happened while none of us are on the level of David. We know what would have happened if Nathan the prophet went up there and said, Dawid, Ata Melech, you the king. Wa'ata Rodzeak Wa'ata no eighth. You're a murderer and adulterer. You know David's men's in them, his peoples, if you will, would have flown Nathan's head. Nathan's head would have been off his shoulders if he came to David saying, you're a murderer and adulterer. Somebody in David's crew would do it just to sit there and show face. You said, what about my man Bang? Hold that. That's how some people are. So how do we go about it in wisdom? How can and should we go about such in wisdom so that way it can be understood? There was a man, he had a lot, and there was a man who had one. And the man who had a lot took that one man's one. What? Someone had a lot and he took from the man who had only one? That's not righteous. See, you got now David in a situation like that, man. What? He did what? Now you have one's attention. See, I'm not trying to speak of myself, say in that particular matter, but sat there and spoke, say, with fam about that. That is a sea roach. Look at the roach and look at that thing you calling a shrimp, man. It has the same thing. It's the bigger water bug. They're related, homie. You know how we cousins and we related? Well, that thing is related to the thing that you use Raid and Max on. If that thing was crawling on your wall, you'll be upset. And then family members begin to sit back and think, but you can't do that, staying in the camp, teaching the same people the same thing over and over, year in and year out. Regurgitating to the same organization is not growth. Bring it out to the brothers and sisters who don't know this way of life. Not to get too personal, when my mother, may she rest in peace, came in this way of life back in the 1980s, she found a relative that was in the understanding of Israel since the 70s in the same camp. Both of them coming out of Brooklyn and Harlem. Are you serious? You stayed quiet and didn't bring the word out to the family, and maybe it wasn't meant for you to bring it out to the family. Maybe it wasn't meant for the family to grasp it at that particular time, because it is ultimately the Most High who opens up the eyes, no matter how much you talk, no matter how many examples you give. It's the Most High who opens up the eyes. And so what we want to do, brothers and sisters, in wisdom, is how to present things to family. And you cannot do it staying secluded while okay going to a job that promotes wearing mixed garments and uniforms. And if you're out of uniform, they will send you home. We have to use wisdom. It was not the custom of Israel to bald their heads. It was the custom of the Egyptians, in many cases, to bald their heads. See, when the scriptures tell us that they shaved Joseph's head, that goes to show you that it wasn't the custom of the children of Israel to walk bald-headed. but you in another person's society. But Joseph still knew, I'm not bowing down to your gods, and I'm not sleeping with another man's wife. He still had his integrity while knowing how to speak to the Pharaoh. It's called intelligence, not my feelings. And you do not, family, ever, ever, and this is told to me from one of my teachers, you don't ever put the nation, in this case, the nation of Israel or any other organization, over your family. Because when you're buried, like some of my teachers are, and the children are there and the relatives are there, Israel goes back to their camps like they did after the time with the divided kingdom when Solomon died. Back to your tents, Israel. So let's use our wisdom, hoping and praying that people got understanding from this, how to present things in wisdom and in love, and to cause people to want to sit back and think about how to speak, who to speak to. And you can't sit there and do that being a hermit in your camp on or offline and excluding yourself from family. It doesn't mean you're going to sit there and cut the ham with them. No, I'm not touching that. That thing chills in the mud. And the family looked at me not too long ago, like, well, I said, that thing that y'all about to sit there and eat, if you ask me, well, because those who do know the English name, it starts with the letter V, is like, oh, V, you don't know. You know good and well I don't eat that. It wallows in the mud to calm off and chill off. I'm not eating that. Well, we are. Plant the seed. You never know what can happen, but you can't plant the seed staying over secluded. Peace.